To all attendees, this meeting is being streamed live. The camera is located directly in the back of the council chambers above the clock. Madam Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cottle.
Here.
Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Crafton.
Here.
Councilmember Velock.
Here.
Councilmember Rubio.
Here.
You do have a quorum, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Nikki, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ian, next meeting you'll lead. That way I'll keep up.
Study up, practice.
Yeah, let him practice. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Are there changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. We are now at public hearing. There is one ordinance scheduled for public hearing this evening. Madam Deputy Clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's ordinance serial number 2525, providing for the adoption of the annual budget for fiscal year 2026 and appropriating funds to carry out said budget. This public hearing was continued from the April 28, 2025 council meeting.
Okay. Anyone wishing to testify on ordinance serial number 2525, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing no one, I will close public hearing and bring it back to the council. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2525?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Graham.
I move ordinance serial number 2525 and request that we go into committee of the whole for discussion of fiscal year 2026 budget.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I second.
Isn't that two different motions? Sorry, Mr. Graham.
It's a what?
Well, we have to, we
To our master municipal clerk over here.
yeah,
No.
technically we need the motion to move and then the motion to committee of the whole. Sorry, just for,
Let's take them one at a time.
So are you looking to divide the motion?
It's been moved by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Velock to adopt ordinance serial number 2525. Is there a discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton?
I move that we enter committee of the whole for,
We need a second.
we already had a second.
There was
Yeah, is there, we're on discussion.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I move that we enter committee of the whole for purposes of discussion of ordinance serial number 2525. People included is city staff and council clerks.
Is there a second?
Cottle seconds.
If the motion has been made by Councilmember Crafton, seconded by Councilmember Cottle to go into the committee of the whole. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, we are in committee of the whole at 6:04. Okay. Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Can we get a bit of an overview of this year's capital budget from Cassie, since we're specifically going into it before we get into any detailed ones?
All right.
Excuse me, we're on page 244.
Correct. 244. So on page 244 is the FY 2026 overview of the capital improvement plan. This is the capital budget by fund. So on the left side column, you're gonna have the actual capital project fund. This basically includes mostly general fund operations capital improvements that we need. And then below that is the vehicle replacement fund, the easement right-of-way fund, roads fund, and then on the information technology fund, and then on the right side also is all of our enterprise funds that are for capital improvements that are being requested for the enterprise. Some of these projects are brand new appropriations that we're requesting new projects off of. Some of these are projects that are continuing on into new phases or need additional funding due to cost estimates and things of that nature. And then there are ones that are what I kind of consider an annual reappropriation. That's kind of like our water repairs, our sewer repairs. It's putting money into the capital project for emergencies and things that come up for any kind of those repairs that come along the way. This is all, everything within here is being paid by the city. There is no grant funding being recognized on any of this, so there's no thing from the interconnect, nothing of that relation that is in here. This is all city money coming from basically our fund balances or net positions, depending upon which funds you're talking about. And so right now we have currently roughly about $21 million that would be coming through on capital projects this year, either through fund balances or a transfer from the general fund balance, either through unassigned fund balance or through our committed fund balance, which is committed for capital improvement projects. That roughly sits about at almost $37 million that we've currently accumulated. So with that, are there further questions, or you want to go further into detail, I guess?
Mr. Graham?
And Cassie, what was the amount of the capital improvement project budget last year? You said this year is, if you could just give me two numbers, last year and then this year would be great.
This year is $21,003,975. And last year, I believe it's roughly 11, but let me double check.
I'm looking at it from our old budget, Cassie. The number we had in our budget was $11,426,000.
And there was a bunch of changes though,
Changes
so.
since then.
That number currently is $11,426,000 at final adoption.
Further discussion?
All right, can we go page by page, Mayor?
Sure.
I've got questions on almost every single one of these. so.
Okay, then we'll start on page 245, comprehensive plans implementation. Questions?
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Crystal, this was our comprehensive plan. I mean, obviously, we spent about $201,000 last year. Or we have spent about $201,000. The additional $120,000, what does that get us?
To Councilmember Crafton through the mayor. So the 201 is 1 through 4, and then we have additional tasks. That would be for 2026. And if you can see, the current balance is 174, so yeah. We're just getting started.
And to follow up, Mayor, so looking at last year, it looks like we were only projecting an additional 60 for 26 and 27, and then this year we're asking for 120. So basically, it's combining the two. Is there going to be additional funding beyond this? What are we looking at, a full implementation, or is this just getting us the document basically in a presentable manner?
This is for the deliverable, the final deliverable.
And
Okay.
Madam Mayor, for Ms. Nygaard, so of the 201,000, is that money that's committed, or is that money for work that has already been done?
That's money that's been encumbered against on a purchase order. I believe we've currently paid on roughly about $4,000 to Dow for it, but it's covered on our purchase order through the contract that was approved by council.
And then what is the delivery date for the purchase order that is currently out on the streets for this $201,000?
It's currently got a delivery date of the task of currently June 30th of 2025.
Thank you.
It can be carried over, as all of our purchase orders can be, so.
Any more questions? Okay, we're going on to Enterprise Resource Planning Software, Tyler.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. So I remember I'd asked quite a few times when we were going through operating, I assume this question is gonna go to Cassie, Mayor, our finance director there. Cause a lot of it we were paying overtime for, and we've already spent quite a bit of money on the actual purchase and contract with, I think it's Tyler, yeah. What is this, what are we gonna do with the 340,000, and it looks like you're asking for an additional 360 over the next 2 years.
So this is the $750,000 that was currently in the CIP last year is the current contract we're working on. That is to get us through the remainder of this year, and then also it's paying for licenses and our software support and our implementation period. The additional money that is being requested is for the items that are going to be coming after in January of 2026. That will be payroll coming online, getting it ready to come online, and then also our employee portal, if they want to call it that. That's where our timesheets and different things of that nature will be happening. That also includes the license fees for Tyler, because we will be running a dual system for roughly 2 years. We will be running our current system of Naviline, and we will be running Tyler at the same time. Tyler is going to come out of this CIP project, and then the license for Naviline will be coming out of the general fund, as it has the past 24 years. So, and then what happens while you're seeing it drop off in 27 and 28 is that licenses, as we drop modules from Naviline, that money goes over to the, the general fund takes over, and then this is done, cleared through.
If I could follow up, Mayor.
Yes.
So basically you're saying we're spending extra money right now because we're dual licensing some stuff right now. That's part of where this is at. Do you happen to know what the overall cost is that this conversion is going to take between the CIP of actually purchasing the licenses and everything, and then also the inclusion of how much extra we're spending in overtime? I understand you might not have that answer right now.
The contract alone was roughly about 1.5 million over the next 5 years. The best estimate I have probably in overtime is probably roughly anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000.
Just an
It's
additional
a
overtime.
variable between departments, between what's going on and what we have to do for setup and implementation. It will be more in finance right now because of the finance area and then the payroll side, but then as we go along, it'll move into business licensing, it'll move into the permits through planning and things of that nature, like their staff will have overtime as they try to implement their side of things. And then eventually it will be in the utility side at the very end. That will be for utility billing, and then set up for the conversion between the two. We have Maintain X and then also Tyler. They'll talk to each other, so there will be some going back and forth on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I did miss that, Cassie. For finance, we have, or the code and planning, we have citizen serve, right?
Correct.
So that's never gonna transition to Tyler?
It will.
It will?
It will eventually, once we get through the finance and the payroll. It'll be in, I think, January of 2027 is when it would start their
2020.
implementation.
Okay, the implementation, okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's what I missed. Thank you.
Yes, it will. Citizen Serve, Maintain X, a bunch of our current ones that we have will be going away, and those licenses will be dropping off. And Tyler takes on those licensing fees.
So Tyler's gonna be the big bang.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Awesome.
It'll be a
But
one portal kind of thing.
2027 is when it maybe
20
will be totally
2027, 2028,
implemented.
it'll be kind of a flow through, but yeah,
Okay.
right in there.
Awesome, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, moving on to page 246, citywide ADA compliance program.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Graham?
so this is probably for Eric here. So ADA compliance is essential for participation in civic government use of public facilities. Are we up against some sort of a deadline from the feds to get this done all at once, or in the civilian world, you know, I don't need to come into compliance with ADA unless I do some remodeling that would affect access. So is this a project to just sweep through the city and get this done, or is this, sweep through the city and get this done because the feds say get it done by X date? Or are we under the same rules as our civilians, and that we do these things as the opportunities present themselves, as opposed to making this an opportunity?
So thankfully, we're not under some sort of dissent decree by the feds. This request came from the OSHA inspection that we had that revolved around the asbestos testing and the site visit they provided. And it really stems from the vulnerability that we face as a public entity with the state of our ADA and lack of a program. We don't have any program that's reviewing ADA compliance for the city. So we're at risk for any entity that wants to come in and basically sue us. That's common down south. It doesn't take much to prove that the city hasn't stood up a program that looks to that. So there's been some citizen interest in an ADA advisory committee, and so this is a response to try to reduce the city's exposure to risk for accidents or outside litigation.
Mr. Graham?
And so does this eliminate all of our risk, or is this, you've got $100,000 for 1 year and then that's it?
Yeah,
You know, if
this
we're
is
gonna have
seed
a
money.
citizens committee, shouldn't it be, well, we're gonna spend 50,000 1 year, 50,000 next year, 50,000, and so on and so on? Why is it set up here? Cause as 1 year, when what you just told me was, it looks like it's a multi-year project.
I would assume it's multi-year. I didn't feel comfortable trying to assess a value past getting us started with a consultant. So I didn't want to put a number into the future years when I didn't have any basis for that. So this is to get a consultant to support the fact finding and help us develop a program that moves us down a risk reduction path.
And is Holly online?
No.
So it's my understanding that when an organization gets sued for ADA, the courts say, shame on you, you had an opportunity to do that, but you didn't have a requirement to do that. So now I, the court, am gonna require you to do that, to put in a lift by these stairs, for instance. That's the requirement. There's no fine, there's no, criminal penalty or anything like that. It's just that someone says they don't have access, and then if the city says, well, we're not gonna provide access, then they sue. But I don't.
I haven't been through a lawsuit. This was working with HR, who identified it as a risk that we felt needed to be mitigated with some consultant support. So that's how this ask came about.
So this is just to hire a consultant to review and provide a detailed report on how to correct problems identified within the city. So are they gonna identify only those problems that OSHA identified, or are they gonna go out digging through things to try and find stuff, or what?
It would be the attention to the most egregious risk for an ADA lawsuit within the city. So there would be a review of if it's this building or if it's, I don't know if you've ever seen, DOT actually has surveyors in the summer, typically younger people, that walk down the sidewalks and measure the cross slope because of probably some sort of descent degree or federal requirement. But there is a great depth of ADA compliance that can be expected from government officials, government entities. So that's something that if someone came in and filed a lawsuit against us, we don't have any program to say we're making strides, that we've identified things that we're gonna address in a logical fashion. And so that's what this is to seek to do, is figure out what that would take and have a starting point as we identify what we can mitigate in the beginning, and if it builds a system going forward, then the council would understand that after we start this.
Well, I'm somewhat reluctant here because OSHA's been around since the 70s, and the ADA push has been on since the 80s. And last time I checked my watch, which is broken, but last time I checked my watch, this is 2025. So this is 40 years down the road, and now we're saying, oh my goodness, we're not ADA compliant. Well, we have been ADA compliant for 40 years. I'd really like to hear the attorney weigh in on this and say we are exposing ourselves to a punitive risk as opposed to just the risk of having to, put in a stair lift or whatever to accommodate, a person with disabilities. And
So I'll go further than that. It's not just a stair lift if it's the bathrooms are
right.
accessible.
Well, I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah, but I mean, so if we said that's the detail that could be brought in, they could need to evaluate if the restrooms for this public side of the building meet ADA, if the doors are ADA. So my understanding is that it wouldn't take much for a visiting public person to say they don't meet ADA and I can't be involved with civic government, and then we could end up in a relationship with the federal government that we don't want to be in.
Madam Mayor, on the line of ADA compliant, opening a business, you have to be ADA compliant. So we are already ADA compliant, or we wouldn't have our doors open. You are saying we don't have a program to update, since we're not, as Stu says, back in the 80s, when this building was built longer, we were ADA compliant as if you are grandfathered into it. That's what we are in this building, correct?
Mm-mm.
I would not know how to answer that, in that fact that who's inspecting the ADA compliance, right? We don't have building inspections here. We don't call for an ADA inspection. So.
Your fire marshal checks you off when you open the building.
But that's
That it
not
has
for
to be
ADA. That's just life safety fire code.
No, that's handicap bathrooms, that's protocol. That's ramps. I've done many businesses and know that you have to have those plans. So I find it hard. I struggle a little bit. I don't know it all, but I do know that to open the building, you have to have that. You have to be compliant. Now, things do change on a regular basis, but yeah, I'd be curious too, in the sense of that. It's not like we're in a building that's not been used for how many years. We are compliant to when we opened it, and things change, correct, but you are grandfathered into it. And I can speak on this, why. Like I said, I have fire marshals walk through all my buildings when I open them, but when I started Edge Fitness up on Connect Tire and Auto above the old Subway, those stairs were crazy. And I didn't have handicap accessibility up there. So that is a risk, having a gym on the top floor that you did take, and clearly anyone that wanted to could, but at the same time that building was grandfathered in, and so it wasn't required. So I don't know enough, like I said, I don't know who would know enough on this, but, I just, yeah, hiring a consultant to do this ADA, it's silly, and really go one step above and beyond this. Aren't we looking to maybe revamp this city hall? Or, I don't know, tear it down, demolish it, whatever the goal is here. So I just feel like putting this money in a consultant isn't the best thing, but I'm not sure about it. I'm just voicing my opinion.
I can tell you that we have had, persons call and say, I'm handicapped, I can't get in, you know.
Madam Mayor, I agree, but there is a ramp up top that can get you everywhere and down below. So I do know that.
Right.
We do have ramps. So that's why I struggle a little bit with this ADA compliance. But again, I don't know enough. But I do know this building has ramps at all access.
Nikki?
Madam Mayor, I understand it not to just be this building, is that correct? You're talking every city-owned building, so I think we should keep that in mind. And I look at this as, you know, I think it's maybe a number you just put out there because you don't know what it's gonna cost, okay? And it's probably in the city's best interest to just once in a while have an expert come through and see where we're at. Like, you know, maybe we haven't got any complaints. Maybe a handicapped person can't come pay a bill at the front in a wheelchair, but maybe they have issues, you know, but yeah, so I see this as, you know what, this is something we need to look at. We could eliminate an issue further on, or we might not even be aware of an issue, but we have an expert come in and go, ooh, you guys, what about this, what about that? And it's every city-owned building, so I think this is a good idea, because there's stuff like, you know, Councilmember Rubio said, we're not the experts. That's why we hire experts. So I am for having an expert come in, might not cost near this. And who knows, they might come in and say, you know what, you don't have to do this, might be a good idea. But I think it's a good idea, just to see where we're at, what we need to do, and we might not have to do anything. Then again, they could say, boy, you're lucky that no one has gotten hurt here or complained probably that they couldn't get in the building or whatever. So that's how I see that.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Part of my understanding about compliance too is it's only areas that are allowed to be accessed by, well, not necessarily always by the public, but there's certain aspects as well where you're required to have it. But I mean, I'm struggling to find where we're out of compliance as well. Just walking around, I mean, thinking about this building, I mean, we've got a ramp outside, we've got level entry here. I mean, obviously then we've got MATCOM as well. I've been down to the police station. I mean, I'm struggling to find where we're out of compliance. And again, when it does come to that compliance, like Mr. Graham said, it only matters if we open up something, we do a significant change that requires us to now come into compliance. So I mean, I think I'm with Mr. Rubio and Mr. Graham where it says, I'd be curious to see what Holly has to say about this one. Just out of hey, is this something that we really do need to do right now? And I mean, I get what Ms. Velock saying as well, as it's kind of one of those things that's just saying, hey, here is a list of things that if somebody were to come complain, this is somewhere that they could. Like that I do understand. We had Wolf Architecture here recently and he said, wait, you're supposed to have an elevator. And I'm like, well, do we technically, you know, again, that's one of those things. If we were required to have one, wouldn't we have already had one put in? So I think our clerk's already put it down. So I'd be curious to hear what Holly has to say. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just one other comment. And it's not just what's open to the public, it's employees also. It's not just, oh, well, you know, customers never go there or whatever. No, this is buildings with employees and whatever. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you. And Ms. Velock is correct. However, the only time we're gonna get sued is if we don't hire somebody because they have a disability and they don't have access to a building. You can write job descriptions that say, well, you gotta be able to lift 70 pounds shoulder high or stuff like that, which is a reasonable thing, but then when it comes to just basic access, we can't deny people access. We can't deny somebody a job because we haven't made a reasonable accommodation. And that's the whole key there, is we have to make a reasonable accommodation to make that work. We don't have to make a reasonable accommodation for everybody to do everything. We've got that camera right there in the back, which allows anybody anywhere in the world to listen to my wonderful voice and watch the mayor shake her head. But I mean, that is an accommodation. That is an accommodation for persons who are unable to leave their home. So that is an accommodation under what ADA would consider to be an accommodation. So this doesn't mean that we have to do everything for everybody. There are reasonable accommodations that can be made, and I think they should be made on a case-by-case basis. And based on that, I'm going to go back to my first question of the night, or the answer to the first question of the night, which is our capital budget is going up by $11 million this year. $11 million. That's 50% more than it was last year. Is that really where we want to be? And are there things that we really have to do? And I think this is one of those things we do not have to do. But we'll discuss that when we get into amendments. So.
Ms. Rubio.
Madam Mayor, thank you. And I know that, like Velock, you said it's not just the city, I agree, but you look at our library, our Menard Center, all of those are ADA compliant. These newer buildings are already by code done, so it's just one of those things. I do understand City Hall is, and maybe even the museum at this point is grandfathered in, so unless we do more renovations, which we did, and they did get those up, so yeah, I agree.
Mayor, no, we're not beating a dead horse or nothing like that, but, Eric, what prompted you to put this in the budget?
Yeah, so it was working with HR, with the interviews with OSHA, and then talking about deficiencies they saw here. I guess the other thing to think about is that the city has massive holdings and assets. So we have, of course, this building, we've got Menard, we've got hundreds of millions of dollars in facilities. And then we have leases with other groups like the Teelan Building and the Valley Performing Arts Center and Mascot Building and the Iditarod headquarters. Those are all liabilities. And I would not stake my reputation on us being ironclad protected from our relationships with them. So just keep in mind that we have many, many liabilities out there. Cassie and I are still trying to get our heads around all of the leases that we have that seem to pop up every so often that could drag us down. And so the request through HR and what they saw and what they felt the city's risk was, this is trying to reduce the risk to the city financially and from litigation. Because we know when litigation takes place, the only ones that wins are the lawyers. So that's where this request came from, so that we can start down a fact-finding pathway to reduce our risk and make sure that we're not exposed, either knowingly or unknowingly.
And Madam Mayor, and like this is just hiring a consultant. It might not even come close to this amount. And then I think once we see what that consultant comes up with, do we really need to do it? That's, I think it's a good idea to just see what's out there, because something prompted HR to want to do this. I think it's worth looking at. And I think maybe that 100,000 could have just been a number pulled out of the sky. It could not be that amount. And then we can make a decision from there. This is what they came up with. Are we liable if we don't do that? If this, then I think then we can make the decisions on what we do and what we don't do.
Any more questions? Okay, moving on. Strategic plan. Ms.
Madam Mayor?
Rubio.
My question really is, I feel like the comp plan was like 320, the sewer master was 250. What are we getting for the strategic plan for 50? Like, what is
Crystal?
that including?
I'm gonna refer to finance and you for how that got in there.
So this was put in due to the goals and initiatives. It was one of your goals and initiatives. One of the parts that was added in there was a strategic plan. This $50,000 is coming up with having a consultant come in and do a robust kind of strategic plan with stakeholders throughout the community, employees, business owners, all sorts of people in regards to that. This number is based off of, I went out and looked at different cities that have gone out to bid in the last couple years for a strategic plan, and they were ranging in the $50,000 range, to be honest. This is where that number came from. So the city of Kenai, the city of Sitka, the city of Soldotna, I believe, and I went somewhere else, but I can't recall at the moment, sorry. But they were right in this $50,000-$60,000, and it was for basically having somebody come in for about 6 months to go over the goals and initiatives and things of that nature. I will say, in order for them to do a strategic plan correctly and the way we want it to be done, it would need to be, a comp plan would need to be finalized, or at least be in a draft form so that they can build off of that comp plan, because that comp plan is gonna drive everything in regards to that. So I will state that. And I don't know the end date of the comp plan, because I'm not part of that, project, but I can tell you that was the reason it got put in. So.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. And I looked back when I saw in the notes here that it was in our goals, and I was looking at our goals here, and technically the council didn't write that one, so I'm actually kind of curious how it got put in there. I mean, to me, there was just a few things listed off plan-wise, and we just left it be. We didn't specifically, from my memory, is the council said, we want a strategic plan.
Councilmember Rubio added it in.
Is that what we added, was a strategic plan? Okay, sorry. We've talked a lot since then. So, my more question is, how's this gonna be different than the comp plan? Like, isn't the comp plan gonna really get us a lot of what this would do for us?
No, because the comp plan is a 20-year plan. It goes and it narrows itself out hugely, drastically out for many, many years, where a strategic plan is usually only a 5-year basis.
So
It is really a short term of your comp plan. It's trying to get to the end goal of your 20-year comp plan at the end of the day. And it's taking little bites of the apple and trying to get yourself there at the end of the day to get to your complete comp plan and then redo the process all over again.
And more so, it's taking a snippet and it's blowing up a section of the comp plan and saying, hey, let's zoom into this section and really focus what you're gonna do the next 5 years over. And just to clarify, you saying that we should have the comp plan, was it the end of June this year? Is that what date you said?
The
Was
first 3 tasks would
the
be
first 3
done.
tasks. So when will the entire comp plan be done?
18 to 24 months
From,
well, so you're talking June of end of June of 26. And then, yeah, so right now, in fact, we just answered that question, it'd be June of 26 is the final deliverable will come for approval to the council.
June of 26.
26.
Okay, sorry, I misheard that. I said June of 25. Okay, so that's final deliverable is 26. So why would we put this in this year if really this isn't gonna be something until next year? Or are we, cause if they're gonna need the comp plan and we're not gonna have the comp plan really done until the end of the fiscal, or 2026 fiscal year, I mean, to me, it makes more sense, let's put this next year, or 2027 fiscal year. That's my thought at that point, just based on when deliverables are.
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Rubio?
And that's why I was asking everything, try to line that up, but that made sense to me when I was looking at it and trying to figure that out and looking up what is a strategic plan, you know, in the big picture of what it is. And so, you know, it's like the cart before the horse, however you wanna look at it, but that's what I was figuring too.
Mr. Gray?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And everybody on this side of the table, this end of the table over here, is hitting the nail right on the head. You know, the comp plan is the beginning of a lot of other things. So to put together a 5-year strategic plan without knowing what your long-range plan is, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We need to focus on the comp plan. We need to get the comp plan done. If there are some short-term strategic things that need to happen, that's what the council is for, that's what the administration is for, that's what goal setting is for. You know, we can make that happen, but to start on a project, you know, which is to look at the future growth and prosperity of the city of Wasilla, when we don't have any sort of agreement or even some sort of vision of what the future of Wasilla is going to look like, I think is, you know, I think Ms. Rubio said putting the cart before the horse. I mean, that, you know, that horse isn't even born yet, so I don't see any advantage to starting this strategic plan this fiscal year or this coming fiscal year.
If council will remember, we have been doing strategic planning every year. And since we don't really know how to compile it all and whatever, then it was suggested that we hire somebody to do it instead of us trying to crawl along and do it. So, we took it out of the deputy administrator's budget where it's lived and put it into the CIP. So that's the main reason it's here.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I think you're right. We do need one of these. I think the biggest issue we're running into right now is we have a comp plan that's way overdue. I mean, I think our code says it's supposed to be done every 10 years, if I recall. Like, I mean, it's codified every 10 years we're supposed to redo that. And the date of the last comp plan is 2011. I mean, we are 4 years outside of what we were supposed to do. I mean, we shouldn't even be talking about a new comp plan for another 3 years right now, but here we are, you know? So, I mean, this would have made sense, but I think we've kind of finalized how this one is here. So I think you're right, Mayor, though. We do need a way to look at this, but this is just something we're not ready for quite yet. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, so if we amend this out, is this something that would stay in the deputy administrator's budget then, or it just won't get done anymore?
It just won't be done.
Because I know we've seen one. I know we've seen a strategic plan. That must have came from you.
Yeah, so we've been kind of it's been a micro version of what would get us to a strategic plan. So we do like department 5-year plan, like their 5-year goals, and we give you an update annually. But we've not compiled all of that into a report. And we've not went out and had stakeholder engagement and got your input. It's been the administrations, these are the goals for these departments, this is where we're at, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, this is what you're probably gonna see in the budget coming forward. So we kind of augmented what would eventually be someday a strategic plan for a third of the price. And so if this gets removed, my understanding is we won't be doing that practice anymore. We won't be coming back every fall, giving a presentation on where the departments are on their 4th year of 5 years and giving you an update. That's been eliminated.
Mr. Graham?
Thanks. And Crystal, have we been doing that with a consultant, or have we been doing that with a consultant for $25,000 a year? What have we been doing? Because you're going department by department, so you can kind of pick and choose. Some departments need a little more help with their foresight than do others, but, I mean, how have you done that in the past? Has
So
that
when we
been
s-
you or your brain power putting this together, or has it been you hiring somebody to do the legwork and the brain power?
So when we started, a couple years ago and got some quotes, you know, it was a sizable lift to do the full-blown plan. So we hired, an independent consultant to do the one-on-one with the departments for one, usually takes 2 full days, and then prep for the presentation to the council. We felt that as we were growing, it would be beneficial for the council to hear where the departments were on a 5-year plan, until we got the comp done plan. This is my first time doing a comp plan as well. So in the initial cost to have the independent consultant come in was around $10,000, and they've slimmed that down, so last year was $7,500. That's for 2 days, and then she's prepped us in the past for the presentations, but we haven't compiled a report. So we're in our 4th year of 5.
Okay, any more questions? All right, we're moving on to the GIS Asset Mapping and Management System, page 247.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. So looking at what we've got here, so previously last year, which I find interesting here, because I'm looking at last year's budget too, and we approved 150 in 2024, 50 in 2025, so that's 200. But it says we've only appropriated 150 here. That'd be my first question, just to clarify that number. Did we amend the budget and take away 50 at some point? How did?
Sorry, I'm looking up.
That's
to see
okay.
What has happened with it?
Madam Mayor, while she looks at that, can I ask a question? It doesn't, just so she can keep going. I think it goes to Eric. What is asset records? What is the definition of that?
So it would be records that relate to well, it could be pretty much anything really, but what it would mean is things that we want to track. So in this example, it has to do with quantifying anything like water, sewer lines. We've talked about the mapping we've already done in water, so this is outside of that project. So it'd be tackling our sewer lines. And then quantifying, we've done a bunch of it with the borough where we have the road lengths now, but going back and making sure that we understand lane widths. So once we can quantify size, scale, or scope, then we can start to apply the cost analysis for replacement. So an example would be that one thing that I want to map that's kind of intrinsic right now is when the DOT has built us a road and they turn it over to us, it's going to have long-term maintenance. Or for instance, the Parks Highway rebuild that they provided in the early 2000s, we have an MOU that says that we are responsible for certain levels of maintenance, certain things along the corridor. That's really hard right now that's just lived in one person's head. Like, oh, that's our job to go do that. And so housing that information and then quantifying what the impacts to operations or expenses, that's something that we want to get our hands around. We talked a little bit about all the properties that we lease, and all of the relationships are different. And so to be able to understand location-wise and house the data so that you can see in one place all of our responsibilities and how they might differ. That's the goal in being able to put it on a map. so that when there's turnover in staff or when there's turnover in, especially in those leases, when there's turnover in who's in charge of that nonprofit that's running it, you have it in a known place and you can help them understand what our relationship is with them.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So just help me, assets, records are like sewer lines, water lines, you're saying, I'm assuming?
Yep.
And then ultimately creating an enterprise asset management system. You're saying the whole system collaborated is what we're calling an enterprise asset management system.
Correct,
Okay,
yes.
thank
And so that's useful for you, the executives, to know what the value of the city is and then can forecast what it's going to need to function into the future.
Right. Does the Tyler do this? It does?
So Tyler's information will match up with this. So there's an API. So Tyler's not going to provide the mapping. It is going to say, in Tyler, this asset is this thing on the map. So it'll talk to each
So
other.
to communicate. Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Eric, is this not the way we found out exactly how many feet, miles, or whatever of the water lines? We thought we had 40 and it's
115.
115?
Yeah, yep. And that's because they put in the data fields, they said, it was built this year, it's this big, it's made of this, it's this size. And then what we need to do is be able to take our work orders, which will also work in the system, and say, we've been working on this zone more than the rest. So you can start to pull that data out and say, there's definitely something going on in this zone, or brown water events. Where are all of our brown water events? So you take this data that's hard to aggregate because it comes in so slowly and see it in a graphical representation when you can say, oh, I see the correlation. This needs our attention over there.
Madam Mayor, Cassie, did you find it? You still digging there? Otherwise, I got another question too.
Yeah, we appropriated in 2024, $150,000. We did appropriate $50,000 for the current year. That money is actually was transferred out and into another project that the council approved. I just had to find the right project. I think it was Metro. I think it was the MPO is what we transferred it into. If I remember correctly. I'd have to look up even further, but that's what it's currently the notes that I have in the system.
Madam Clerk, would you be able to find me the ordinance on that one? If you could, thank you. So my question, if I could follow up, Mayor. So we basically haven't even spent $30,000 out of this account yet, over 2 years technically. And you're wanting $50,000 a year, because that matches up with last year you had asked to, was basically over the next however many years you're asking for an additional 50. What are we doing? And I'm not trying to doubt that we don't need this. This is obviously a very valuable tool here. But how are we spending $50,000 a year to warrant that we need to keep padding this account $50,000 a year?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we've been able to do is leverage other monies. So we're using the interconnect money right now to build the mapping that would have come out of this. So we're setting this aside. We may decide that we have enough for now and we don't need 50,000 this year. We do have ongoing there is a subscription involved, and so the way the system works is when we this also has our zoning maps in it. When the public goes and looks at the zoning map, there's a credit that's used, and so we use credits every day as the public uses our forward-facing GIS system, and so we'll buy more credits to replace those, and then we have the subscription to this, and then part of the reason that there's still a balance is we just have been bottlenecked with getting another consultant in to start to digest the rest of the information.
So every time I refresh the page, it charges us, is what you're telling me?
It technically, yeah. It's a fraction of a percent.
It's open on my computer all the time. So Because what you put in here is that you're asking for an additional $50,000 this year, and it sounds like we might actually not need that additional $50,000 considering we've got almost 3 years worth of that built up in this account right now.
Yeah, because we've been
Utilizing
strategic
other
about
funds.
what programs we're using for the mapping we're doing now.
Which, again, I applaud you guys. You guys really do a wonderful job at saying, hey, we're gonna put some money here aside for this, but then you go, oh, looks like we found another way to spend money without having to spend our capital dollars or something, and you do a pretty good job, so, thank you.
Any more questions?
Madam
Mr.
Mayor.
Graham?
So following up on Mr. Crafton's comments there, I mean, we have $123,000 in the bank that we've said we're gonna use for this project, and right now we're not able to spend $50,000 a year because, you know, a consultant either doesn't want this project or they've got other longer term projects that have better return on them or whatever the case may be. So in the back of your mind, are you reconsidering this ask and saying, well, maybe this isn't something we need because all it's gonna do is just continue to build up a balance in the bank?
Yeah, I'm not trying to build the balance up for no reason, so I'd be happy to work with what we got, and if we run into the end of a project and can't finish it with the funding, then I'll bring it back to you and we can talk about it at that time.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, earlier you had mentioned the licensing fee associated with this, so I mean, I see an end to the aspect of this as a capital project where we're taking a huge undertaking of trying to get everything put in there. I assume there's obviously gonna reach a point where now it's just a maintenance of like, oh, we added this road or we added these piping, so we're just gonna put it in there. We're not gonna need it as a capital project. What would be the continual maintenance costs and licensing fees? And I guess where would that start going into the operating budget, or are we gonna always see it here in the
I would
CapEx?
say it goes into the operating budget.
Where would it fall, if you don't mind? If
I
you have
think
any
it'd be
idea?
general administration. In my mind, it'd be a citywide program, so wherever Tyler goes is kind of where I envisioned it would end up in operations.
Finance.
Yeah, so finance. But anyway, wherever makes sense, so that, cause
You catch all,
we
Cassie.
need to have, we want a digital twin basically is what they use in the industry, is that you have the place to store the pertinent information so that you can monitor what you need to with your assets.
And if you don't have the answer right now, do we know what the annual cost is on maintaining this between the licensing fees and the credits that we're utilizing? Because I don't recall seeing it in the operating budget at all. Or is that falling out of this right now, coming out of this right now?
Yeah, it's coming out of this, and then we are not, so like if you, except for you using our credits, we don't have a lot of public. No, it's good. That's what's job. Every time you go on to Parcel Viewer with the borough, you're using borough credits. So I use a lot of their credits.
I have like 4 tabs open, so it's okay.
Yeah. So we don't have a lot of public facing maps right now. So we're living on the first batch of credits that we bought, and so then it's just licensing beyond that.
Okay.
Any more questions? Hearing none, we're moving on to library, RFID scanning system. Questions? Zane, would you please? Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This sounds like the perfect solution. This is what a capital budget is all about, finding ways to make the city more efficient without adding personnel costs. You know, when we add personnel costs, it adds up every year. You know, 8.5% or 8.4% this year, which carries on through eternity. You know, so that slope goes up and up and up. In this case, we have pretty much a one-time cost, which we know isn't necessarily going to be true because there will be some maintenance on this system. But we're not having this escalating cost, but what we are getting is we're getting escalating efficiency. So kudos. I'm all behind this.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you. I'm with Mr. Graham on this one. I was just curious here, how much more efficient are we looking to cut down on some staff hours with this as well, or is it more so just saving them time so they can do some other things as
I
well?
think it's saving time that they can do other things, but it's also being more accurate for the checking in and the checking out. So it saves me time dealing with patrons that get things, you gotta sort things out when they're, but it's also, there is some pre-sorting that'll help if we decide to go with the machine that does some pre-sorting, but that's down the line. At this point, I don't think we're looking at, right now we're busy enough that we're kind of treading water with our staff and how busy we are with the amount of materials coming in, 20,000 items a month. They're coming in, going out, getting back on the shelves. I think it helps make us more efficient to be able to better utilize staff for some of the other things, programming, maintaining even the shelves in better condition, being able to do some shelf reading, keeping it more and that makes it more efficient to pull holds for people to find things like that. So I'm not looking at this as eliminating staff, but I think it's making everybody more efficient, and it also is going to help us moving forward. It's getting harder to find the technology that we have now with the tags and the security strips. Those are getting harder to find. They're growing up in price. This technology has been around for about 20 years, and it's pretty much taking over the vendors and that kind of thing. So I think it's just a more efficient, better way for how we operate.
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Godwin?
I just wanted to make the comment that I did some research on this machine, and that the Anchorage library system, that they have that in Chugach and Eagle River, and they love it.
Yeah.
And they feel like, for the most part, from what I've read and talked to a few people, that they do feel that it increased efficiency to be able to get books back onto the shelf quicker and things like that.
Now let me qualify this though.
Okay.
This amount is to change to that system, okay, to the RFID that makes those machines possible. We don't have space for a machine like that now. Even Eagle Rivers takes about, say, 40 square feet. We don't have that room in the way our building's currently configured. This does, as stands, makes us more efficient as it is without having to get the machine or add on to the building. The machine that they have at Lusac and the one they have at Eagle River, yes, that would be the next step after this, would be to see how the efficiencies are. Does it make sense? Right now, we're waiting for the final result from the architect that was about expanding the staff space, processing space, and the book drop area with this in mind, to create a space that could handle a machine that could handle this. So this does help now if we go ahead and do it, but it also can be take that next leap at that next step to help us keep up with the growth in the area and things like that. So I just wanted to clarify, this doesn't get you that machine right now, but it gets that step there, and it does make us more efficient now though. Yeah. So, all right.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Zane, how much is that machine?
The one at Lusac would be way more than our operation that needs. It's 1.5 million. The one at Eagle River, when they purchased their machine, it's a smaller machine. They do about 14 to 18,000 circs a year. We do about a month, excuse me. We do about 20,000 circs, and their machine, when they purchased it about 5 years ago, was $250,000 for that machine. And yeah, so it's not a drop in the bucket. It's looking at the long term. Is this going to eliminate or reduce chances of repetitive motion? Is this going to make the library more efficient so that we can continue to function, keeping up with the growth in the area? Yeah, there's other decisions down the line, but I think even if we didn't go that route, just this alone makes us a better, more efficient operation. I would recommend we go the next step, but I don't even know what the number is for adding on to the building yet. We're waiting to hear that back from the architect. It should be, I believe, in the next 2 weeks or so. We should have some idea of what that would entail. And part of what the contract is for them to make a presentation to City Council on what they're recommending for the building and all of that. It's a later date, of course.
Cassie?
I also just wanted to make sure the council knows that this also is being funded by leftover construction funds from the library. When we built the library and eventually all the additional, was it 1% at the time, I believe, or something, whatever it was, went into its own investment account, and then we slowly have paid down the library and everything along with it. And so this is the remaining construction funds that are left on there from that point in time. There's roughly about $55,000. And so we would take that money, that funding, and use it towards this. And then we also, so the general fund or capital improvement plan would actually only be roughly about $20,000 at the end of it, just so you are aware. It's not all coming from our fund balance aspect. It is, we're trying to clean up some of these different investment accounts. The PD actually has some too, and that's actually how we're paying for the gas tank and the road and the fence and everything that's kind of happening over there. So we were just trying to clean some stuff up, but I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Mr. Gray?
Thank you. So, Zane, this is buying the equipment that allows us to do the RFID. So for us to convert over, we're gonna have to generate RFID tags for every piece of inventory that we have in circulation. So is this gonna make it where you come back to us and say, hey, I need to hire somebody, part-time, temporary, whatever, to insert these RFID tags into the books, or as they naturally circulate, will they end up with the RFID tags on?
So this amount includes the security gate, installing the security gate, because it'll be a different type. The 3 checkout machines will be changed out to accept this. It also comes with the machine that you use not only to convert it, but you use it for going forward to add those IDs to the new, to process materials as they come in. So that machine, I'm not sure if I believe it, they say those machines can do with a person that knows how to do it, can do 400 tags an hour. You're connecting it to the records that are already there. Instead of using the barcode, that 14-digit number, you're using that tag. So it should be a pretty smooth process. We wouldn't, I don't think we'd have to close the library, and I think we could use the staff we have to make that conversion as we go, as things come in and as things, as new things are purchased and processed.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. This is probably gonna go to Cassie there. So, this is like the whole, what was the fund called? The information technology one, where this $75,000 it's the appropriation of that, not a general act. So,
Correct. It's the appropriation to spend to $75,000 to purchase the RFID stuff, and then $20,000 of that is in the transfer schedule to pay for the remaining balance that he's needed to make up the difference between that and the construction funds.
okay.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you, Zane.
Thanks, Council. Mayor?
You're free to go. We are going to page 248, and it's the MS4 program.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess probably to Eric on this one, or Cassie, whoever wants to take this one up. So we've only spent 10,000 out of the 100,000 that we've put in. And I was trying to find where we had this here last time in last year's. There it is. Because according to last year, 2024 appropriation, 100,000. 2025 is 100,000. So we should be at 200,000. Did we have another ordinance where we transferred this out? That's my first question again. And then Second question again, what are we doing with these dollars? Cause it doesn't look like we're doing much again. Kind of the same question when it went back to the whole management system there.
Yeah, well, Cassie pulls up the numbers. So the MS4 stands for Municipal Separated Storm Sewer System. And this has been this kind of came online at the same time that the MPO did. The MPO has taken a lot of bandwidth, and that's up and running. MS4 requirement is also because of us being in an urban area, and it is slowed because DEC has said that they don't really have the interest in forcing us to have the MS4 that Anchorage does. DOT operates like there's one out here, and DEC told us to act like we have one so they don't have to stand up the real MS4 oversight that they provide. So to set up the system is a lot like the comp plan, because there is, I think there's 7 or 8 steps that have to take place, and there's a lot of public outreach. So there's literally kind of like what Scott's been setting up with the park passports. There's an expectation of going out to the public and putting together packaged information that talks about our MS4 program. And then there's an ongoing testing requirement where we actually go test runoff and have numbers. So what you see is, you see the funding requests in fiscal year 26, and then going forward, those were kind of copy and pasted. So I can't forecast that far into the future. To stand up the MS4 program is going to be in the same scale, I would say, as comp plan, which we know is over 200,000. So the last couple funding requests have been to build that fund up enough so that we could go get a consultant as we start to see DEC step up and say, okay, we are serious, you're going to need to get this program going. So we've been having to pick and choose what we put our focus on, and since the MPO has had a lot more steam, that's where a lot of our bandwidth has gone. So we're going to have to get around to this because that expectation's coming along because of our relationship with DOT and the couplet. We just haven't had the bandwidth to get a consultant on yet because that fire is still out in the future.
So are we just preparing ourselves then? Is that what the plan is here? Is we're just gonna build up a fund balance so when we know we have a bigger spend, is that where this is headed right now?
Yeah.
And do we have an estimation of what we're looking at to implement this program? Do we have an end goal cost at all, or is this just one of those, we have no idea what it's gonna cost?
Well, I've been looking at the level of effort, and it matches pretty closely with the comp plan, with the number of public meetings that have to happen and the document that you're creating. I don't know how to forecast what the ongoing maintenance will be, what the operations impacts will be, and so that's why, to carry it forward past 28, I would review that. I wouldn't carry that forward. I think that was just a copy and paste error in that way, but this second funding round, I think, gets us to a level of consultant support where we would be able to mirror what other MS4s have been built in the state. There's also kind of the unknown where we have to be co-applicants with the borough and the state because of our infrastructure, and that I don't know exactly how much water we have to carry to be their co-applicant, if that makes sense. Because it's basically, if our water leaves our properties and goes to states, we're co-applicant. If the state's water leaves their property and comes on us, we're co-applicant, and the same with the borough.
Cassie, have you found that one yet? If you could.
That actual 100,000 there is supposed to be 200. It's just, it was a mistypo. There's $200,000 that's previously appropriated and a remaining balance of 190.
Oh,
And that would have been 24 and 25.
correct.
Correct.
So we've still only spent 10, but it's supposed to be, we have originally appropriated 200 and we currently have 190.
There's 3,500 that's encumbered at the moment with HDL, and then the remaining right now is 190,000. So
I don't know, is this something this page would need to be corrected for to clarify that?
Yeah,
is
I'll
that a
correct it, but
Scrivener's
it
error?
doesn't have to be like a budget amendment, it's just a,
Okay.
it's just a
Scrivener's
clerk
error.
error, what do you mean, a clerical error on my part.
Okay.
We've figured it, but, that's basically, it wouldn't affect the ordinance of it.
Madam Mayor, I missed the number, but I think Stu got it, 3,500 for HDL. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
3,500?
3,500?
Okay.
Yeah.
And remember, this MS4 is federally mandated. Okay,
Madam Mayor,
yes.
can someone explain MPO again to me, please?
Yeah, so that stands for Metropolitan Planning Organization. And so it, like the MS4, says that any of the entities within the urbanized area need to have a group that works through major transportation projects. And so what used to happen in the valley was the city did its own thing, the borough did its own thing, and it was more, what's the word? It worked with DOT more than the city did, but a DOT would come in and say, here's what we want to do for improvements, and we're just going to move ahead. Now that we're urban, the federal government requires that the DOT joins officially with the entities within the MPO, and now all of the decisions in the MPO have to be made by that board, basically. So our mayor is the founding member for that MPO. She's on the policy committee. I sit on the technical committee, and so the mayor of the borough is on the policy committee. The manager is on the policy committee. There's 3 representatives from DOT. Anyway, so that means that we locally, through the mayor and through the technical committee, have more say in how the federal and state transportation funds are spent in our area.
We actually get federal money that comes straight to the MPO that does not go through the state. It's federal highway money, I should clarify, that comes straight to the MPO. So we get actually more money. And if we had not joined the MPO, then we would only get a 50% match. But since we are in the MPO, we only have a 10% match.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Gray?
So, Eric, let me take you back to same question I asked before about another one of these projects where the funding was there and not used because we don't have the capacity to use it. So if we were to, right now we have 2 years worth of money in the bank with a minor exception. So if we were to skip funding this year, however, leaving, the idea out there that 27, 28, 29, 30 are gonna be at that $100,000, is that gonna have a material effect? I mean, I don't see it at this point.
No, I think that'd be fine.
Any other questions? Then we're going to stormwater improvements.
So this one is addressing projects around town, especially ones that we found with the January flood event that we had. So this is money that we would be using to address those issues that we see, add culverts where we need to, re-improve infiltration basins. We haven't really talked about it, but there's a project on Wasilla behind the mall in Weber. It's I don't know if you've been back there, it's a gigantic lake. I've been talking with those landowners about addressing that drainage and bringing it into the Adida Park drainage control system. So there were a lot of inadequate drainage areas identified with that event that we had this year that we want to get ahead of.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton?
same question as last time, going to Cassie here. Last year, 2025, we had 125,000 appropriated. 2024, I see 125,000. and again, from what I'm seeing here, it seems like sometimes where the previously appropriated only is 2025, but it seems like sometimes it's 24, 25.
So if the money's been fully expended from 2024, it's not included in that previously appropriated because it's already been fully expensed. That's why some of them have 2024 and 2025 under it, which means CIP balance from 24 has rolled over into 25 and it's included in the current balance. So some of it has it and some of it doesn't, because if they've spent that money in 24 and it was already done and fully gone, and then they requested more in 25, we just put in that because it's already off the books for us.
I'll be honest, I'd prefer if you did both. Keep it one way or the other. Either we're only gonna say previously appropriated. I mean, I can't speak for the rest of the council, but to me, that's confusing. Cause then I don't know how much is previously appropriated, and I'm looking at here and I'm seeing different numbers. That's just my thought on it. So where are we at with this one here? Cause we've got $321,382 previously appropriated. Again, we're $30,000 into this one here. I mean, obviously, we're doing some pretty big asks here at $250,000 each year. Obviously, some of these projects tend to be pretty large projects, especially considering the implications of each. It's a situation based. I think Mr. Graham's question stands there like last time, is if we missed this year's or we skipped this year's $250,000, I mean, is that something we could do?
Yeah, we can make the projects work to that budget and talk about it next year.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Eric, with the current balance, you know, including encumbrances, the $292,000. I mean, obviously that's a project, you know, I mean, none of these projects are cheap.
Right.
But is this the Weber project you're talking about, or is this a project where, and I'm just gonna use Dipper as an example, you know, where Dipper has stepped up and said, we're gonna do this project, this is what it's gonna cost, and this is when we're gonna start, and this is where we're gonna end, and that's part of that encumbrance.
So the Weber project has not been scoped out yet. I just got a hold of the property owner to see if they'd been amenable to the right-of-way easement that we would need. So the current balance, I think, is enough to make a major dent in that project. So if funding was paused for this fiscal year, we would spend the balance and talk about what the next projects are next year.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, street light, LED improvements. Questions?
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this to Cassie here, why doesn't this just fall under the roads repairs? I feel like the dollar amount's low enough. I know you've thrown around that if it goes over a certain dollar amount, it becomes CIP. Gosh, where do you get 197 here? I mean, because the last 2 years we were only putting in 15,000 each year, so 24, 25, 15 each year. And now we're doing 25,000, but we're not asking for any more in the future. And in 25, you guys didn't estimate that you were gonna do more. I know I'm throwing a couple questions here. But first question, why is this in here and not in repairs? I feel like it's more of a repair and maintenance type thing.
As it was presented the first time that it was brought to council, it was brought as a multi-year initiative to change all of our streetlights into LEDs. And so it was a multi-year project that was gonna go on for about 5 years, which is why we kept it in the CIP budget. And so that's the reason that it's been in here. And then the multi-year project was gonna be roughly around $100,000 back when it was first appropriated in 23, I think. But this was the estimate given to me by
Yeah, I think it was
Public
just
Works. It's just been a multi-year project because,
for visibility.
yeah.
So you're right. It doesn't match with what we talked about with project size. It was a visibility decision whenever it started, and it predates both of us.
Is there a reason why we just don't move it to? And it looks like Mr. Graham might have something to say about it. I'll let him.
So a multi-year project, you say that predated you, that was, tagged to be about $15,000 a year, and now we're gonna raise that budget by 40%. Why are we doing that? Why are we not sticking at 15 or allowing an extra 10%? Why are we doing this
We wanted-
significant jump?
We wanted to end it. We wanted to get it done and be done.
And according to last year's budget, it was gonna be done this year. There wasn't, when we look at streetlight LED improvements, there was money for 24, money for 25, nothing for 26 and forward. So, and likewise, we've said, well, we were gonna get all the streets paved by the end of this fiscal year, which is not the case. And is this eye candy? I mean, can't we stick at $15,000 a year? And if
Sure.
it takes a few more,
Yeah.
if it takes another half a year to get it done, it takes a half a year to get it done.
Yeah, there's no harm in that.
Every year you put it off, the cost goes up.
We've been putting it off for quite a while, apparently, 5 years. So. But we've been working on it.
I know, but just saying,
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton,
I mean, I honestly don't see a reason why to move it this year, but I would say next year, if it does come up again, which it sounds like it will, I feel like it'd make more sense to have it in roads and maintenance under there, unless there's a reason why we have to leave it here.
I don't know.
Cassie, I see Cassie's thinking on it, so.
Well, and I think the biggest part too is the reason that we keep it in here is so when we do receive roads from DOT and things of that nature, we are now responsible for those streetlights. And so if we do need to replace them, we just spent last year's budget on Crazy Street and we replaced all those streetlights at the $15,000 we had last year. So every time we receive a road from DOT, as now it's our responsibility, we have to take it on. So it's one of those things to make sure that we're aware and our citizens are aware that when we do take on streets, we take on everything that goes along with those streets too. So that's the reason that it sometimes ends up going up more and more is because we continue to get streets that we have to replace streetlights on. So there's another one that we just did too.
Yeah.
Well, to use an example like that, I mean, Main Street. Main Street's gonna be the next one that we're taking on. I mean, this is saying, hey, we're gonna spend about $500 to convert every street light to LED lights. I mean, kind of like what Mr. Graham said was, we're not really increasing the price at all. We're just saying, hey, we're gonna commit to spending $15,000 a year at $500 a pop to make sure all of our lights get to it. So again, eventually I would think we're gonna do away with this and then it would just be, oh, looks like we got a new street. There's 10 of them on here. That's how much it's gonna cost at $500 a piece to convert them over. That's just my thought, is to me, it doesn't make sense having it in the capital expenditures.
I think it does merge into operations, and I agree. It doesn't need to stay in this form anymore. It can move to operations.
Kathy?
Eric, and I don't know if you can answer this off the top of your head, but kind of a two-part question. How many streetlights do we still need that we own that we need to convert to LED? Do you know approximately how many streetlights we have still to do?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know that we did a assessment on the lights we don't own with MEA because we pay rent on some of those lights. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. I can look into it.
And then the other part of that question is, when you purchase lights, I mean, do you have lights in inventory that need to be put up and converted to the old ones?
We have poles in hand. They're somewhat specific to what arm they mount to, so there is some variability. So I don't believe we carry much of a stock in hand. It's replaced either when we choose to replace them, and these have served as replacements for damage too.
Okay, because then my concern is the way prices have increased on everything. You're still showing the same price as last year, and it makes me wonder how realistic that price is.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen now that tariffs are coming in, so it's a concern.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, Kathy raised a good point here. Isn't with the GIS software, wouldn't we be able to, I mean, the streetlights are an asset at that point.
Yep.
I mean, isn't that something where those would eventually end up at, so we know which ones we own,
100%.
which ones we don't own?
Yep.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Seeing none, we're moving on to utility relocation on page 249.
So I'll get in front of this one and let you know. This is very much like the permit monies that we have to set aside for the railroad permits that you'll see later on. So this predates us, but this was to have funds ready for when we're required to cost share for our obligations for the Department of Transportation for relocating because of projects. So if they don't need us to relocate, we don't have to spend the money. And for whatever reason, this had existed, so we chose not to change it.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
It shows on this one previously appropriated at 60,000. Cassie, do you know when that was appropriated? Because I don't see it in last year's CIP.
It was in 24.
Was in
It's
24?
It was not, it's been rolled over.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Are we expecting a certain dollar amount, or are we expecting anything, or again, we just padding an account here?
Well, I was thinking about a different project. I just want to look at something real quick.
Madam Mayor, I think you're looking for page 256. That was my question. Do they tie together?
Which one?
Because I didn't understand what utility relocate we'd have to do and what project. That's what I was trying to tie into. It's like a combo. It's a combo of all.
Which one are you referring to? That what it would connect to?
The relocate, so it's like I was trying to figure it all out myself. So go back to page 250. I think there's one on there that we are.
Are you thinking of
that
the
goes with
easement funds
striping.
here?
No, that goes with striping. I'm looking. No, the easement.
Easement's
is
on
one.
255.
Easement is one that could be utility. I just didn't know what the projects were. I was trying to tie it to something for the relocate. Like, what project is this? And from what I'm trying to figure out, that's what Crafton and Councilmember Crafton had asked. There isn't a project on the table right now, correct?
Would this be part of the KGB? Where we were still moving utilities around? They're
Yeah.
still moving utilities up KGB.
Yeah, I
and
saw.
down
I
to
think this.
Fern.
I think this started with us having to move our utilities for KGB for the phase 1, and then it stayed alive because of our utilities on the Main Street couplet. And that's why I was flipping to the other project that we have at the Main Street couplet, which is us using that opportunity to, which is on page 263. Using the opportunity to make upgrades before the road is finished and we can't touch it.
So do we, I guess my question would go to, then do we have an estimated cost of what we're expecting at that point?
Not yet, because the DOT hasn't finished their conflict. What they've done is they have a team on the utility side looking at all of the water, sewer, telecom, gas, electricity to see where the conflicts are and then who has to move. And so that was monies to move our stuff out of the way if it's in conflict with one of the other utilities in the area. So just like we had to do with KGB, we had to move our water line a couple places, add new fire hydrants.
And we're obligated to pay it if they're making us move it.
Yeah, that's our relationship with them. It's their right of way. So if it needs to move, we're on the hook for that.
Madam Mayor. So Eric, who pays for, like if it's our project to relocate utilities from everything from electric to telephone to, I know that MEA has to do their part and MTA would do their part, but who pays? I know they get paid for that, right?
They
Who
do.
pays for that?
So if we use, this is funny, if we use couplet project as an example, we will be paying MEA to move their power lines. And then we are doing that, and this was the arrangement that was made, because we won't have to pay match to the state. So in that negotiation, they had no match because we're taking the right of way over, and we're gonna pay MEA for moving the power lines. Then everyone else, the feds are paying through the DOT, are paying for like the gas removal and telecom and stuff.
Whichever, you can go. So Madam Mayor, on 256, it's really 257, my question. For that, I know it's jumping ahead, but the Glenwood crossing replacement, that's a split cost thing, right? So was that part of this relocation of the utility thought in mind, that it could be?
So the Glenwood project is not a split cost. We have to pay for the whole thing because of us having a road crossing the railroad.
So would we use money for any of that for that utility locate or no?
I broke it out separately because it's
Okay,
a different project.
Okay,
yeah.
so it doesn't
Yeah.
tie. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Madam Mayor.
Kathy?
And Eric, maybe you can just clarify this, but was the negotiations on some of that utility relocation that was done was so that we didn't pay match, was that ended up being that what we paid for the relocation ended up being less than what we would have paid for with a match?
Yes, significantly.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any more questions? Hearing none, we're going to the road grader with,
Madam Mayor,
oh, sorry,
That's
Mr.
okay.
Graham.
that's all right. So I'm still working on this utility relocation in my mind. So we think that we're gonna spend $60,000 a year, as a good guess, for our share of utility relocates on these projects. But we have not used any of the previously appropriated money for this. So once again, if we didn't use any of the balance, why are we adding to the balance?
Yeah, I don't think we need to.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we're moving on to the road grader.
Madam Mayor, should we take a 5-minute recess?
About 10.
10 works for me.
5-minute recess. are back on the record at 7:48. And continuing on, and we are finally back to the road grader. Any questions?
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Rubio?
team player right here. Yeah, I got you. On this question for you, if we sub this out, what is that for the use of this grader?
If we sub out the work or lease it, or
Well, I was trying to do the math on, it's only 82 hours, you know what I mean? Well, 8,200 hours, but if we, sub out the work, clear.
so right now, we have the subcontract where we use it for the south side of town and some of Whispering Woods if it's really heavy snowfall, or actually wherever, you know, we exceed our capacity. So this is just upgrading the existing machine that they've had since '97. So it's keeping the fleet the same size, the old machine to be surplused.
I understand that, but what would it be if we subbed it out, not purchasing a brand new, or replacing?
I don't have those numbers.
Can we get those? Thank you.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you. So Eric, last year we talked a little bit about operator with equipment contract, which essentially I think was about $250,000 to have somebody on call, not necessarily with a specific piece of equipment, but you call them up and say, hey, we need, you know, road A graded from here to here, or we need, you know, snow removed from here to here. And they go, yay, verily, and they go out and they do it, and then they charge you so much per hour, depending on what piece of equipment it was that they're using.
Right.
To follow up on Ms. Rubio's comments here, why wouldn't we do the same thing here? If we're looking at $450,000 essentially to replace a piece of equipment, this is to buy a brand new piece of equipment.
Correct.
I'm guessing.
Yep.
And we're talking about, this one has 8,200 hours on it over probably more than 15 years. Sounds to me like, unless even if there is some sort of critical emergency sort of thing, that equipment operator contract would be, you know, a much more smooth expense than would be this big, huge $500,000 expenditure and then nothing for 15 years and then another $500,000 for, you know, or in that case, you know, $1 million. I'm kind of agreeing with Ms. Rubio on this, that adding this under that equipment operator contract, in my mind, is making sense. Can you talk me out of that?
Well, I think that our system right now works very efficiently. I think that our staff with equipment that we own provide high level of service. We call in surge support from our contractors when we need it. We don't control what the next bid will look like when it goes back out for competition. So to have this, to maintain the level of service that we have right now, as we get more roads that we maintain, I think is a long-term cost-effective way to do it. We have diligent staff that, you know, are experts at our facilities, do a great job keeping up old equipment, and so, you know, replacing it, it'll stay in good shape with the history that they have. And Cassie's mentioning the 302 relationship with subcontracting and union membership, so.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Probably to help Ms. Rubio and Mr. Graham there, it's just a hair under 300 hours a year is what we've been utilizing this. If we bought it in 1997, which I believe is true, it's 28 years, just a hair under 292 hours a year, obviously, or 93 hours, obviously that's an average. We've mentioned a couple times about how much more roads we're gonna be gaining. I mean, besides Main Street, which really isn't that big of a road, I mean, Is there some big project to annex that we don't know about? Because, I mean, in all honesty, there's really a limited number of roads that we can obtain in our 13 square miles, considering how many of them go outside that are state and our borough. I mean,
There's no secret annexation.
right, that's what I was
But
getting
Main
at.
Street isn't one that we maintain right now, and then we're gonna have the Talkeetna connection, so that will be a high priority road, which means we'll throw all of our assets at it, for rush hour, and then we'll spread out to the lower impact road. So it is going to feel like quite a change to the staff, and it's gonna take some time to equalize, our relationship with our term contractors for that surge capacity.
But we're only taking on Main Street, we're not taking the section of KGB on Park, up to the other one, it's just Main Street, right?
We'll be taking from the corner of KGB and PW, so at the corner of the Native Clinic, all the way into town, both sides of the road, and then in the yellow connection up over here.
Oh, so is that gonna become Main Street now?
Yes.
It's not gonna be KGB anymore?
Well, that's a good question. I think it still stays KGB on that side. I think Main Street starts on our side of the parks. It's gonna remain KGB. I don't know where Talkeetna's gonna start technically, because it's gonna merge
Right.
off of KGB.
Regardless, more so, it's a matter of, it's really not that much road we're talking about. It's really the point I'm
Not
getting
linear
at.
wise, but attention wise, it's gonna be one of our highest traffic roads. Cause we don't have any Parks Highway right now, so we're gonna have the main north-south connection between KGB and the parks.
Any more questions? Hearing none, we are moving on to the multi-year project at the train depot.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. See you. No.
thank you, Mayor. Now, if I recall last time was the council had denied some funds. I can't remember if it was in the CIP or if it was just during appropriation portion of it. Because we basically said we don't have a plan. And is that what $500,000 is gonna get us, is just a plan?
That wasn't my intention, no, it was going to be a plan and approved by the council and then move ahead with constructing it, so. If this is up to the council, if this is a project that you wanna continue working on, or if you wanna pause, or if you wanna modify it. I'm looking for the council's direction here.
I mean, in all honesty, I feel like a lot of us, what I've been saying is we're trying to trim some fat here. We had a big increase in our CIP this year. If you don't mind me asking you a bit of a blunt question here on the spot, what do you think the plan would cost us?
I think the plan's gonna be a couple $100,000 when you get our architects involved.
200,000, 250-ish, probably?
Probably not that high.
200,
Probably high 100s.
high 100. So if we gave you 200,000 instead, and then said, hey, we'll figure it out from there, instead of saying, hey, 500,000 now and another 600 next year.
Yep. Yeah, we
One
can totally work with
between
that.
the two of them, that would be a little bit more, to me, a little bit more appetizing in my mind. Thank you.
Ms. Rubio?
Madam Mayor, thank you. Just reading the verbiage, waiting area, shelters, and they can serve as gathering spaces. So it was, I wanna say 2 years ago at this point, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head when I asked for the bus stops to be removed because people had reached out that owned businesses with homeless and debris and other things in these gathering bus stops. So we did take those down. I feel like throwing shelters even up there is just gonna, it's exactly what it says, community gathering spaces in the sense of what we don't want. And so that's just a red flag to me as I read this one, and my point on that.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, There is nothing over there. And there is nobody that has stepped forward on the private sector and said, hey, that's a great idea. I mean, we've looked at it a couple times with several different developers about putting in shops over there, putting in, trying to get even a coffee shop over there. And the answer from the private sector is no. There's nothing to bring people in over there, and so, well, let's build a train depot over there. Let's build this reception area. Well, there's still nothing there to bring people there. We get 1,600 people a year on and off the train, roughly through that area, and about half of those are students that the Alaska Railroad runs up and down the railroad for free for, not for free, but as a field trip sort of thing. They're not people that are spending money. They're not people that are spending time. Currently in that area, we have the depot, which we own, and we essentially give to the Chamber of Commerce, and it costs us money to give them that building because we pay the utilities. Yep. We maintain the parking lot. Currently, there is no landscaping over there. I'm assuming that there's a plan to landscape this summer, or maybe that's part of the money here, but there's nothing there. And the Chamber is not a very good partner for us. They don't do anything to attract anybody to come over there. They don't do any events with the building that they have over there. So I would say, no, let's put this plan on the shelf. Let's landscape what we've got there. Let's get some flagpoles up. Let's make it look nice for what it is. But what it is just a train depot in the middle of nowhere. And we can build another building right next to it that looks the same. And then we will have a train depot and another building that looks the same in the middle of nowhere. So I would be interested in seeing, what's it going to cost us to landscape that, get the flagpoles up, clean it up a little bit. And I would be interested in funding that, but I'm not interested in funding $500,000, on this. Well, if we build it, they will come, when the private sector has clearly said they will not come. And we need the private sector involved to get something going over there. So,
yeah.
Do you have numbers for landscaping, or could you have those at one of the future meetings?
I'd be happy to pull that together.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the feedback because the project showed a build out and we wanted that option to be brought to table, but if that's not the will, that's totally fine.
No, and I appreciate you bringing it forward, but I think things have changed. And,
Absolutely.
Life is not stagnant. Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to respond to Mr. Graham's, throw a thought out to him there. If we had a plan, because we don't really have a technical plan yet that showed the public and said, hey, this is what we could do, would you be interested in coming if this was possible? I mean, you might have some more background information, you've been around here a little bit longer. And so that's part of where I'm at with it, is if we did something like that. Again, we don't have to build anything, we just have to say this is what we'd like to do and this is what's possible. That's kind of what I was thinking with it. That's why I wasn't wanting to commit anything more.
May I respond, Madam Mayor? So responding to Mr. Crafton there, yeah, this isn't something new. This is something that's 7 or 8 years old. And even before the depot was moved, there was a large, what they call a green field study. I'm sure the mayor remembers this. I think it happened when she was on the planning commission where, brownfield, greenfield, some sort of colored study that talked
It was
about,
brown.
yeah, brownfield study that talked about what are we going to do to get people over there. And they showed this development of a mall, and they showed, a coffee shop and a little restaurant and this other stuff. And these meetings were held at the library. They were well attended, and to a person, all of the attendees, none of them said, yes, I would invest a dime in that project. So that's where I'm coming from. I mean, if we can go out and convince people that that's where they want to be, then I'm all for it. But for us to spend $500,000 this year and $500,000 the year after that, to have a nice looking empty building there. We've got plenty of empty buildings in Wasilla, we don't need another one.
Further questions? Hearing none, we're moving on to page 250, parking lot striping.
I'll get ahead of this one too. It should be in operations. So we can have stripes in parking lots every year.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton?
thank you. I appreciate you jumping on that one, Eric, so it sounds like going forward, that'd be great. I know I'm gonna jump a little bit ahead here, but just because we've had the conversation briefly about road striping and how you have a lot more put in the budget, because we wanna move to basically contracting it out, somebody to do a quality work. Is that possible to do the same style with this?
Yes, and it tends to be a different group because they use smaller equipment.
Yep.
But yeah, it's very much something we would continue to. We did this parking lot ourselves because I wanted the guys to see that we don't want to do it, but you know what I mean. So, but we contracted out blacking out the old lines with spray emulsion, and then we did the painting ourselves, and that's something we want to contract out. There's guys with these little carts that do it in the middle of the night, and it's great, and that's what we want to do.
And is that what this fund's going to get you?
Yes.
Okay, and is that part
And
of the
it's
reason-
not every parking lot every year. So
Right.
we'll just touch up where we need to, as an operations.
Which is probably why we haven't really spent anything. I mean, again, last 2 years, 10,000, 24, 15, and 25, and look at that, we got $25,000, so, perfect, thank you.
Mr. Graham?
Yes, a question for the clerk. Is it possible to have Public Works put together an amendment, actually 2 amendments, one that would delete this from the capital, and the second amendment would add it to whatever the appropriate budget item is? Is that legal, or do the amendments have to come from here?
I can do it. Yeah, I can do them.
Yeah, because there's some amendments we put together in your packet tonight, so.
Okay, thank you.
We can do.
Okay, any more questions? Mr. Graham?
Sorry.
Okay, we're moving on to building roof repairs.
All right, so the background on this one is that the museum, the road shop, and City Hall have roofs that need to be repaired this summer. So our goal is to have funding for this so we can put out a bid. We've really stretched our roofing guys thin with getting quotes for multi-years on roofs, and then we never pulled the trigger for one reason or another, but we have some roofs that we've been neglecting, and we need to fix them this summer.
Any questions?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton?
why do we have current City Hall maintenance on the next page and maintenance for the roof of City Hall on this page?
Because we're grouping roofs so that we can put out one bidding package so that it has transparency.
And are we improving roofs, or are we replacing roofs? $250,000 is a lot of roof.
It depends on which roof we're talking about. So this roof, the problem is mainly between the joints of the two buildings. It's not the same roof as the style as the road shop, which needs a coating on top of it. And then I am less familiar with the nuances of the museum roofs, but they have all kind of had their own issues.
And this $250,000 one-time deal, and we would be done with these 3 buildings for theoretically another 10 or 20 years?
Yep, that's the goal.
Any more questions? Moving on to MATCOM and EOC.
So So the background on this information is that the operator of the EOC reached out that they have some ongoing light issues. And then they lease that space from us, of course. And then the main HVAC system in MATCOM does not have the environmental protections that it needs. So this was kind of spurred by the EOC notifying us of substantial lighting issues, but also preparing for Mount Spur and learning about how the air handling system works in our datacom system center. And so we have added all of the filtration that we can for the two air handling systems that are up on top. But what really needs to happen is we switch to a different technology that doesn't bring really any outside air into the datacom center for cooling. It has registers on the inside, and it's what PD has that's made it far less vulnerable from environmental impacts. But because MATCOM was a bank, it didn't have any of those considerations, and that server is of the utmost critical infrastructure.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you. So Eric, in my world, this would be called a tenant improvement, since half of that building is leased and we own the other half. Why are we not splitting this cost with the borough?
From what I understand on the agreement, it's not a tenant agreement.
However, they have a responsibility to do due diligence before they sign any contract with us, and they signed off on the building as it is now. Are we talking with them? Are we negotiating with them, saying, hey, sounds like this is an improvement you want the lighting system fixed, we can do that, even though you leased the building knowing what the lighting system was, knowing what the electrical system was, knowing what the HVAC system was. Is there not room to negotiate on this? I mean,
It depends on what, the lease agreement that was made way before my time.
right. Could we look into that or have Holly look into that? Because to me, it seems like it's jointly beneficial at 100% our cost, which, I know the government's not great at doing things that are the way the civilian sector does them, but the civilian sector does things the way that make business sense, and I'd like to see us take a look at that.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. You mentioned that the Wasilla PD building has the filtration system, we'll call it, or HVAC system built in place. Don't we have a emergency backup location or room there for MATCOM if MATCOM were to go down? Isn't that?
We do have a backup, but it's not a full MATCOM. It's just a couple seats. So I think it's 2 seats versus MATCOM's 10. Is there 4?
Right.
There's
I mean,
4
I've
seats.
seen it. That's partly why I'm asking.
CAD and the whole bit, it's just that call handling system.
So maybe you want to chime in.
Yeah, it's just got 4 consulates for Solocom. It's just got the call handling system. It doesn't have the full-on CAD programs or any of the other parts to MATCOM because it doesn't have the servers or the databases there. It just has the capability of answering 911 calls there.
And that was its intention, is that if something were to happen to MATCOM, we have a place for 911 calls to be taken in case of an emergency, if something were to happen to that building. And from what I understand, again, part of what's spurring this is, Mount Spur. And I've also heard the likelihood of that eruption has dropped to somewhere in the 5% range from what I've heard now. Is it more likely not to than it's going to at this point in time?
At this point, yeah.
So I mean, as great as this would be, it's also something that, again, what Mr. Graham's saying is, hey, if this building needs it, let's find a way to not have to foot the entire bill if we're gonna go this direction.
Any more questions? Hearing none, we're moving on to current city hall maintenance, page 251.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Graham?
so as long as Eric's getting good at talking here, so let's talk about the boiler rehab or replacement. So have you done an inspection on the boiler and have some sort of recommendation from a technician about, I mean, is it worth rehabbing or do we need to replace that?
We have replaced one of the 4 already when it failed. And that came about when we were doing a glycol filtering. We were having particulate problems inside the lines. So it was this long drawn out flushing process, and then it ended up that the internal core of one of them had failed. So we still have 3 other boilers of different ages. I think the biggest expense in here is the asbestos abatement. So we've been meeting with abatement specialists to get quotes for removing the asbestos.
But don't we have to abate the asbestos only in areas that we disturb? I mean, when we talk about asbestos abatement, you know, we see these little tape flags on the wall. We can repaint, and theoretically that asbestos is abated. But if we're to replace a boiler and we need to put in some new ventilation or something like that that exposes asbestos, then we need to do something more significant. So
Yeah. So the abatement I'm referring to is up in the attic that needs to have its coating removed. So if it's encapsulated and we're not touching the walls, then that's not what we're anticipating abating, unless, like you said, there's some mechanical reason to go in there. But there are pipes up there that are exposed because of the fact that there's very little insulation up there. It's not air sealed. And so that's why we're still seeing some measurable asbestos when people were monitoring devices in the building. So we want to just get rid of that.
thank you.
Any more questions?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton?
is there a reason why this is in capital, not repairs?
The size of it is the capitals.
So this is one that has crossed the threshold. What is the threshold?
We have kind of a 50,000 in our minds.
It's usually 25 is what I start at. It depends on the project and if it's like a multi-year and different things of that nature. So
And then the 25 is the certified payroll.
certified payroll for the Department of Labor, and then we have to do Davis bacon wages and things of that nature. So it depends on the project and how it's scoped out. So this allows us to have it in its own account and own number so that we can report to DOL and report to grants or anybody that we do anything with in regards to that, depending upon the contract amount.
Because there's multiple that are over that number, that are in the $40,000 and $50,000 range in the operating budget that are maintenance and repairs as well. So that's why it just gets confusing when things start following back and forth with me here, because I mean, because what you're saying is $75,000 for multiple different items versus breaking it down into the operating budget type of situation, so.
And that's something that can be changed. It's just, this is the way the process has been. It's the way that things have been allocated to the CIP fund, and if that is something the council wishes to change, they just need to make it known so that we can change it, because we've been following this current city hall maintenance has been in here probably for the last 7-8 years, and it's just constantly rolled over, so it's something that's just been appropriated for, so it's something we can change and put into operations. It's just a matter of we need to know, I guess that's the best way to say it.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you. So in the little staff summary here, it says, this funding request will augment the normal operational maintenance budget for City Hall maintenance. Now, I know we've been working on the budget for a couple of weeks here. I don't remember there being a City Hall maintenance account, a specific account.
It's in the properties budget. So the property budget that we have, the property maintenance budget, the majority of that budget is City Hall expenses. A lot of the other repairs and maintenance for each of the individual buildings, such as MACCOM and police and WPD and Menard and all of them, they all take on a lot of their own repairs, and they put that is currently in their budgets. as part of their maintenance cost.
Any more questions? Hearing none. Wasilla Police Department, property maintenance.
Madam Mayor, once again, for Cassie, how much of this is funding that was already collected and not used as part of the initial build?
It currently has a balance of $156,818. And that's only as of March would be that balance currently.
So essentially what we would be looking at is, you know, from roughly $70,000 in new money
Correct.
for this fiscal year, not counting 27, $70,000
Out of
from the
fund.
26 budget.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Madam Mayor, so
Ms. Velock?
what is this? Is this going to be a building? It's for storage and fuel dispensing. What kind of area is it gonna be? Like, are we building a building? Is it a carport? Or, what is that?
Who's answering that?
Okay.
Okay,
Oh, hey, I'm here to
talk to.
So this is, last year, for this fiscal period, we ended up combining them all to take down some hills that were some landscaping deals. Those are already completed. They've been working on that. Make another drive for our entrance to exit out of, I guess, the north entrance of that property. And then put up some perimeter fencing with their fuel tanks. The fuel tanks have been delivered. Right now, we got tire and wheel storage. There's the two 40-foot connexes. I like to have permanent storage for those with parts and other equipment that we have that's kind of filling up the garage. And then not this year, luckily, the previous year we had copious amounts of snowfall, so it took a lot of our time to get spare cars ready, and our mechanic to get out there and get those cleared. Property was out there and plowing. Took a lot of time to get snow out of the cars that kind of sit a little longer than normal, and get those ready and be able. So the idea was to complete some of the projects that we have going on, and how that split for this one, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that this is going to incorporate some overhang over the spare cars in the back lot of where we're at to keep the snow and the maintenance free from the vehicles, and then add some permanent storage for tires, wheels, and other equipment that needs to be kind of covered, was the thought behind it.
Thank you.
Is that permanent indoor storage or permanent just overhang storage?
They would be, well, it'd be two different. They have the overhang would be for the vehicles, and then it would probably just be for cold storage. I was thinking, is that what you're anticipating was cold storage for the build and other equipment? Which would be all four sides, correct? Wouldn't just a,
Yeah, I was saying
enclosed.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton?
what's with the $10,000 next year?
Not able to answer that.
The only notes I had was, it was for, needed gates and improvements once the fencing has completely been up and running, and so that was the notes that I have, that's all I had on it. I don't know much more than that.
Why not just make it $240 this year then? Like, I mean, I can understand if it's like $50,000 or $100,000 next year, you know, a significant amount, but I mean, that point is $10,000. So,
I think it was just crossing into, different construction seasons because of the way our fiscal year goes from June to July. I think that's the reason for it, but I could be wrong. But a lot of times that's the cut why we have things in 26 and 27. It's because of the ending and trying to keep construction season moving with funding that's there.
because I know we ran into that problem with the roads at one point where we were only allocating for that summer, and what happened was, like, we have an early breakup this year. I mean, paving's probably starting next week. And we were, for a time, I remember we weren't paving at that time because we had no allocation for it. So in my mind, I mean, it makes sense to always have that little bit of carryover. So again, it just happened to be, we had one year that was super rainy and it didn't work out. And now we're on that pathway where our guys are going out and working. So to me, that makes more sense. So we have that little bit of carryover because of where our fiscal year falls, so that we always know that we're keeping our guys busy type of situation, so. But again, it's only $10,000. Thank you.
Ms. Rubio.
Madam Mayor, thank you. So for FY '26, you only need 70,000. Is that correct? Did I do the math on that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a roughly 155 sitting in the investment funds at the moment.
Okay.
It will accumulate a little more by the end of the year, but it will adjust as needed, but.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Moving on to park improvements.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I feel like this conversation is gonna end up being the next few projects here because they all are pretty much labeled park improvements. So last year, I'm jumping into it here. Wrote down the wrong number apparently. So we're allocating $75,000 a year. This is again one of those ones, doesn't look like we're spending the full balance, but then we're saying, hey, we want to do a parks master plan, but we also want to have a separate fund over here for Lucille, separate fund over here for Wonderland. I guess, is this just whatever park needs whatever? Is this specifically targeted at something? Is this just a fund that becomes the slush fund for anything that needs to get done here? And then at that point, wouldn't it be a repair and maintenance cost? So I'm just trying to wrap my mind around, because there's a lot of things in here.
Yeah, I think in general, there's two goals. There's visibility for putting money into specific parks so that the public that uses them says, you know, my favorite park needs more improvements. So you see visibility for improvements to different named parks. I don't know when the park improvements, when that account started, has it been around for a while?
Because another thing that's interesting as well is when we look, I found it, it's page 201. So last year in this year's summary, it's a copy and paste, but last year there was an additional sentence on here that said funding includes the phased replacement of Wonderland park features, and then all of a sudden this year we're now seeing a separate one for Wonderland.
Yes, and that came from the Parks and Rec Commission wanting to see specific action with Wonderland. So there is this desire to see their requests come before the council so that they see market improvement. So they had made it clear that they felt there wasn't enough direct attention that Wonderland needed to be improved. So they asked for it to be its own project.
Sorry, I'm jumping here, but why haven't we seen a resolution or anything come from Parks and Rec saying that, besides it just something getting dropped in the budget here? Respectfully, I mean, if you don't want to answer the question right now, but it's kind of the point of what they're supposed to do at that point.
I don't think they've met since they said that, if that makes sense. They meet, is it quarterly, Scott?
2 months.
Every 2 months, so.
2 weeks.
So what is this money for?
Which money?
The parks improvement, that's the one we're on, right? What is parks improvement for? Because I mean, it's vague, it's listed a bunch of stuff, so what is specifically, because again, we haven't used much of it, you know? I mean, it says previously appropriated 257, last year, it's about right. But we're not using the full balance.
A lot of it gets used coming up here in May and June because of the summer season. So they do, a lot of their money gets expended during the upcoming months when they have time to actually work at the parks and do improvements either in the bathrooms or different things that they need to do or around. And it varies park to park and place to place, and so it's kind of things that they see that they say, hey, we can fix this, or we can do this, or we need to add flower pots, or whatever the cases are. It just varies based upon what Jess goes out and sees that something needs improved that is failing within a park. This actual CIP has been around since 2017. It's been in the budget for that long.
So, if I don't mind, Mr. Graham, do you have any idea on?
I do.
I'm curious what, if you wouldn't mind shedding some background there.
Well, I don't know that I could change anything on the, because of the background that I know of and that the mayor knows of. The mayor's been Parks and Rec before she became, city council and then mayor. But yeah, this CIP category has been here for a great many years, and has gone this way. The only, and it has worked. I mean, we used this park improvement CIP to replace the lighting and plumbing fixtures in restrooms at Carter Park and also at Wasilla Lake Park, I believe. We did some improvement to the grounds themselves. At Wasilla Lake Park, we did some improvements to the pavilions at Idita Park, as well as I think the paddleball, or what is it called? Pickleball. I think pickleball. I think that came out of this here. So this is something that gets used pretty regularly. And right now there's about $90,000, in the bank, so to speak. And Cassie's right. There's not much you can do with the parks in the wintertime. So that's probably going to be, that will probably be expended by the end of the fiscal year, or much of it will be expended by the end of the fiscal year. But my concern here, we see Wonderland Park, specifically Lake Lucille Park, specifically Bumpus softball, specifically. But right now, Eric, you mentioned visibility. The most visible park right now is right across the street from us. And my question would be and that's going to be expensive now, since we kind of jumped around on the process. It's kind of gone from a $100,000 project to a $300,000 project. Do we want a separate CIP account for that, or since it's essentially a 1.5-year project, do we just want to bundle that into this parks improvement, or I just don't know what that is. But if Nunley Park, the rebuilding, re-establishment of Nunley Park is going to come out of this park improvements account, then we're way underfunded. If it's going to come out of its own, I just don't see it in here.
Yeah, it doesn't have its own account in this book, so that's up to the will of the council. If you wanted to have an account for it now, my intention was to use the funding that we have through the donations and the park improvements balance to bring you that plan and receive feedback and complete the plan to the council's support, and then we would know what that funding level is, and then it would have its own CIP. So that would end up being out of the budget cycle, because I don't know how to put a cost to what the approved plan is at this point. So,
but to get to the point where we're going to have a plan, you consider this park improvements budget adequate to get to that point?
yes.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, to clarify, Mr. Graham, you said there was 90,000 in there? I'm seeing 166,000.
Well, yeah, there's 166 including encumbrances, so about a $90,000 difference between
Okay,
what
sorry.
was previously appropriated and what is there, but some of that is encumbered. Sorry about that. I forgot to turn my mic on. I'm sure everybody's happy about that. But and then of course the other thing I would add, I know we're not on that yet, but when it comes to Wonderland Park, the kids area out there was built because of a donation from Home Depot. Home Depot donated all of that equipment out there, and then the community got together and over about a period of about a month, put all that together, put it in the ground, got it painted, got everything organized, and then got it opened up. So there, you know, organizations like Home Depot and Lowe's and you know, Matsu Health Foundation, you know, I mean, they're willing to work with us on this sort of stuff. So food for thought.
Madam Mayor, if I could continue.
Mr. Crafton?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to wrap my head around the improvements aspect of this, because I get it's being used for certain things, but now what Cassie outlined, I went back to page 143, which is the detailed breakdown of parks maintenance, and a lot of what she mentioned was we have $45,000 budgeted for that, which is parks, buildings, grounds, fence repairs, which is maintenance. So I mean, to me, it looks like they're being doubled up here. Which one is being used when somebody goes out and makes maintenance and repairs to parks, because that's what improvements are. And so, I mean, I'm just trying to say, if this is what, if we're budgeting $75,000, I feel like it needs to be going to something a little bit more specific. If that's Nunley Park, let's call it Nunley Park or Wonderland Park here. I mean, last year we were calling it Wonderland Park, and that's why we put $155,000 towards it last year, was because we were gonna start really diving into the phased replacement of Wonderland Park.
So the differentiation between these two are, there's repair and maintenance, which is not added to the fixed asset that is on our books. If it is an improvement to one of our fixed assets, it becomes a capital improvement project, and it becomes a depreciable amount that gets added to our actual fixed asset list, and we depreciate that off our books. So it varies on whether or not, and we asked Jeff specifically when he repairs something or improves something, are you repairing it or are you improving it? Are you making it better than what we bought it at? Because that will determine how we put it into the system and how we put it onto fixed assets, whether or not it will become part of the depreciable asset, or if it will become just repair, we're maintaining it, and we're trying to keep it back to what we bought it at or usable at this point in time. So those are the difference that we use these for. We use one for repair, that a board breaks, a swing breaks, whatever the case may be, and they fix it, or they put a brand new swing set on, you know, a new swing in Wonderland Park, and they put it on and it's brand new and it cost us $2,500 or whatever it may be. Then that will be added to the Wonderland fixed asset at that point in time, at the end of the year when we do our fixed asset reports. That's the difference in these, that we utilize them for. And that's the difference in a lot of these when we do improvements versus a repair and a maintenance.
Ms. Rubio?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I feel like the parks master plan replacement probably needs to happen. Again, one of those things of the unborn horse, as one says. You know, we can keep throwing money at these improvements and the replacements and argue about what park it needs to go to, but again, if we don't have a master plan, guys, we're just throwing money at it. And so I have trouble looking at all these going, we're just putting Band-Aids everywhere, and it's not gonna add up.
Any more questions?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. So you're saying they're going out there and instead of just repairing something, they're making it better than what it was. And that's where this money goes to is, I guess I'm just struggling to grasp when we're saying, hey, here's some repair money, fix these things. And then they go, oh, I actually made it better than what it was. I didn't just repair it, I improved it. And that goes to what Ms. Rubio was saying is why are we spending money on improving everything when we just need it repaired so that we can determine how to go forward, because now we're wasting money on improving it when technically we don't know where we're going with it.
Because a lot of what they're repairing is no longer available to reset it back to what it was. They have to improve it. The swing that we need to repair is no longer available because the fixed asset is so old. I mean, when Wonderland came in, it's not something that no longer exists that we can receive from the playground company, so we improve it to make it better. I mean, those are the kind of, and those are situations we deal with. We can't, I mean, we don't know. We don't know until we get there and he looks at it and makes a determination and talks to Eric, and we kind of go through this process, and I'm kind of out of it until they put in a purchase order and the whole bit, but that's kind of the scenario that we run through. And it varies park to park and place to place, so it can't, that's what we've been doing, yes. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the equipment and the things that we're dealing with are older and they can't seek it out through other means, I guess is the best way to say it.
Do you know how many times that bathroom over there in Wonderland's been painted in a week?
To me, it's still a repair at that point. I mean, I guess there's some type of accounting back end because, I mean, recently I had somebody that, set of steps were damaged beyond repair, and it wasn't a repair. You had to tear it down and redo it. We didn't call it, I improved the steps. It was, I repaired the steps by rebuilding them. And that's, I mean, I guess we're arguing semantics at this point here. But to me, it just...
So that's a great example, and it's not without pain. We don't do this because it's fun. But replacing the deck just extended its lifespan, and then she has to record that. So if your deck had a few more years of life on it and you built a new deck, you just made it 10 years more, and she needs to depreciate that. So we would not do it if we didn't have to, but it's a lot of work. So.
And it's similar to the pumper truck that was just approved last night. We're putting $48,000 into that pumper truck. That pumper truck is fully depreciated off our books, and we're currently doesn't have any value to us as a fixed asset. When that truck comes back to us, we will take that $48,000 brand new engine that got put in there. We will now place it onto that truck, fixed asset, and we will begin depreciating that asset again through its 5-year life cycle that we have to do per our accounting standards. So that's kind of a bigger snapshot of how sometimes we utilize it. So, and we have to do it for our auditing and for our accounting principles that we have. So.
Kathy?
I'm waiting for the next one. I'm waiting my turn. They hit their buttons faster than I do.
Okay.
I'm doing it.
Are we on page 252, Wonderland Park replacement?
Madam Mayor. She's looking at Elena.
Just start talking.
I have a question, please. Oh, yes, okay.
200.
Okay, this CIP for Wonderland Park, as I'm reading it, is for hiring a consultant, making a plan. Why does that not fall under the next CIP Park Master Plan? I can understand if this was the replacement of the playground equipment. Absolutely, I'd have no problem with that. But this is for a consultant, which is almost the same verbiage underneath the Parks Master Plan replacement. I don't think this should be two separate CIPs. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and it's about the visibility, so it's definitely the council's purview on what projects get funded and what the scope is, so we can mix and match whatever the will is.
I definitely have no problem with the visibility of the physical assets of replacing equipment, putting in trails, things like that. I have no problem with that, but this is basically part of the master plan. And I think it should be under the master plan.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thanks, Mayor. So this master plan, sorry, I know we're jumping here, but again, like I said on the last one, these are all kind of combined. There's pieces of conversation with all of them. That's every park we own, from what I understand, right?
Yeah, that's what the Parks and Recs wanted. They wanted to refresh the 2011 master plan.
And so that includes the Wonderland Park replacement. I mean, it's a visibility thing, put it in the name at that point, but to me let's just do the Parks Master Plan replacement, but with also that in mind, with what it encompasses, is $200,000 enough for all of our parks?
So using the comp plan as an example, and the fact that you have the 2011, you can take what was a great idea still in 2011 that didn't get done and carry that forward. You can look at what the community doesn't want anymore, or what the community didn't know they wanted in 2011. I think most of the cost in this master plan is going to be a robust public outreach, using all forms of communication, getting all constituents so that we can get their opinions and make a community-supported master plan. So,
It almost sounds like it's not enough. I mean, we're spending $300,000 on the comp plan, so. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm gonna agree with what has been said from the dais here, is that, all this says is we're gonna hire a consultant to figure out what it takes to replace elements of Wonderland Park. And it says we're gonna take 3 years to do that, and we're gonna go from there. So I would agree that this isn't really Wonderland Park replacement. This is kind of master plan sort of thing. And then when the master plan gets approved and Parks and Rec Commission comes up and says, hey, this is what we want to do with Wonderland Park, then we create a separate CIP for Wonderland Park. But so, 3 years at $100,000 to do a study, it's a damn shame I'm retired, because I'd sure like to get into that business. But yeah, I would say, let's just delete this item altogether and move this into the Parks Master Plan. Move that $100,000 to make it $300,000 this year for the Parks Master Plan, and just delete Wonderland Park replacement, because this isn't about replacement. This is about, like you say, robust community outreach and figuring out what we want to do. It doesn't have anything to do with what we're gonna do, so.
Any more questions? Okay, the next is the Parks Master Plan. So, since you have discussed it over the last 3 things, do you want to go into it? Okay, moving on. Page 253, Lake Lucille Park, parking improvements, paving.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Eric, can you share first with me where we're paving this? Where this paving is intended to go?
the paving would be for the 2 parking lots. The first one is just past the dog park that serves the soccer field, and then over by the access to the lake.
And then the additional $500,000 you're asking for, is that more paving?
Yeah, so it would be in funding chunks to get the paving done if that's the will of the council.
Were we adding additional parking?
So the area was cleared through funds last year, so the parking lot's bigger now. And so then it's finished grading it so that it can be paved and striped.
Because that was a big area that got cleared. I had some upset neighbors calling me in there about how we cleared all the way right up to their fence. They had a nice buffer from the park, and now they're looking at a dog park, basically.
So you're talking about Endeavor?
Yeah.
There's a fence there, but yeah.
I mean, they can still see it on a 2-story house, which
That's
a few
true.
of them are.
Yeah.
I mean,
That part was, the plan is to, let's see if we have it in here. Address, structural road space. Yeah, so that used to be the tent camping area, and basically the tent sites were in the holes that filled with water and the road was high. And so the intention is to regrade that and then, make it so that, then plant trees again and make it so that the tents are not where the water drains when it rains.
So there is an intention to plant trees to basically screen residential from the public park.
Correct.
Going back to the master plan, is this needed right now? Because we're just paving existing parking lots before talking about expanding parking?
No, this could pause until after the master plan.
Is there any parking in there that, like, I mean, we're not altering some parking with the master plan, that probably wouldn't tell us that.
No, I think the master plan would just talk about the functions at the park, and if there's a lot of use out there. We have a lot of large parties. So if there's users that we don't know about out there, if we want to add more features. I think that's our only campground too, so that's a unique spot to add amenities that campers want so that it remains high quality so that visitors enjoy it.
Madam Mayor? Eric, I will say that area does need help. I've used that parking lot by the dog park. It's amazing how fast that gets really bad. And, you know, you try to get your dogs in and out and you got mud holes and they look a whole lot worse than when you brought them there. So I know at least that part of it, I really look forward to seeing, you know, being done and some of the drainage work being done.
Any more questions? Moving on to Bumpus softball facility. Any questions?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Graham?
So, does this $300,000 in funding, does this pretty much cover everything that Mr. Fleckenstein had talked about, Matsu Softball Association, or what is it that he's asking for that isn't part of this? Might be a better question.
Yeah, so as we worked with him on their vision of this scope, this is an idea of paving the drive lanes so that it's obvious. Their plan right now is to phase paving so that you park in gravel, but the drive lanes are paved so that they can keep the access that they need for emergency vehicles. So this is a portion of what the final lot might look like if funding is continued added to it, but it's his request and through the board to legitimize the drive lanes so that they have better control over traffic and can get people in and out efficiently.
Any more questions?
Madam Mayor?
Kathy?
And I don't know if this is for Eric or for Cassie, but last year, the proposed budget was $400,000 for the softball facility for drainage, restrooms, and parking improvements. Did we use that whole amount already? Because I don't show anything previously appropriated. Did we end up changing that in the budget, or what happened with that $400,000?
That actually, got put into a different project, and so we have utilized it for the bathrooms we just purchased. We utilized it for some drainage with some sidewalks, ADA compliance. I'm trying to remember it all, but it's mostly used.
We paved
Yeah.
part of their entrance by their porta potties, and the work that's involved in that's not done. So we purchased the bathrooms. We still have to install the septic that the bathrooms will sit on, and then there's some drainage that we haven't done yet because it hasn't thawed. That will handle some of the flooding that they have during breakup. So the bulk of the work is still yet to be done.
Okay, so we haven't spent all of that $400,000.
The drainage and the bathrooms will spend all of it.
Okay, I was just surprised why it didn't show anything previously appropriated if we haven't used it yet for drainage, things like that.
The bathrooms are the big purchase, and they just got approved, so we don't show it as appropriated in this book.
And it's under a different project because of the fixed asset thing is the reason for that, because the bathrooms alone will be a fixed asset that will be added to Bumpus softball facility. And then the parking lot will be its own to the land and things of that nature, that we put it under a different project code, basically, is what's happened. And so on that page 278, you'll see where it talks about the Bumpus softball and ball field. There's 399, 348 as then, but we hadn't approved all the bathrooms and everything with that, so.
Yeah, because I didn't think that we had approved all of that yet, but I wanted to make sure why it wasn't showing anything.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you for
because
that explanation.
Yeah, and usually if it already is a project that's already been in here, you'll see at the top there where it has an account number, where it says an XX, basically, it says 45XX. It tells us that it does not currently have a project within our accounting system, and then when it is approved or appropriated by council, we will give it, and the budget book that we will finalize in print will actually have an account number in there. If it has a previous account number, like if you flip the page to vehicle replacement, it has like 7042, which tells us that it already has something in the system and it's running.
Okay,
Does that
thank you.
make-
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Why don't we have anything for the future years? Because it sounds like this is just the beginning.
What you use for Bumpus?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
so there was, we've heard from the council that a plan needs to be brought back. So this is a request to meet the paving needs so they can function, but they're also working on their master plan to bring back to the council for that. So we're not forecasting any more requests for funding because we don't have a plan from them yet.
Ms. Rubio. Madam Mayor, thank you. So like you said, the paving for them to keep moving forward, that's emergency paving strip, so to speak?
I don't want to put words in his mouth, but
Okay.
yeah, he's concerned about safety for
Right.
emergency vehicles.
Well, so question on that, just doing the parking and drainage improvement, is the paving of those two strips in this 300,000?
I don't understand which strips.
The emergency strips?
Yeah,
that we just
yeah,
talked
that's
about?
what this request is for the paving.
So is there a way we could get just the parking and drainage, the cost breakdown of looking at the paving, the parking and drainage improvement? Like, can you break that down so that we can see how that breaks 300,000?
Yeah, so you want to know how much paving that gets and
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah, in the sense of, like I said, it's one of those things like Lake Lucille with the paving. If it's something that we can hold off on the paving until we get that master plan bigger, it would be better than ripping up asphalt, in my eyes. And the bathrooms are permanent, and it's great, that's a great asset to us. I'm all for that. And the drainage, obviously, we need that everywhere in this town. But, if we're just starting small, I just wanted to see what that breakdown would be.
Sure.
I'd appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, any more questions? The time is 8:57, so I need a motion to exit committee of the whole.
Madam Mayor, I move to exit committee of the whole.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second the motion.
The motion has been made and seconded to exit committee of the whole. We are at,
And then,
okay. Do we need a motion to? Okay, I need a motion to postpone, ordinance serial number 2525 to the next scheduled meeting of May 1st.
Madam Mayor, I move to postpone ordinance serial number 2525 until the May 1st meeting of the city council.
Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It's been made and seconded to postpone ordinance serial number 2525 to the next scheduled meeting of May 1st. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, it is postponed. Okay, now we're on to persons to be heard. And seeing nobody, I close persons to be heard. There's no new business. We are now on to unfinished business. Huh? Yeah, they already done that. We already. Okay, since there is no audience today, we will bring it back to the dais. Madam Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll see you on Thursday.
Councilmember Velock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for coming again tonight. Good meeting, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Councilmember Graham.
Very good meeting. Thank you, staff, for great information and interaction.
Councilmember Cottle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Cassie and Eric, for lots of information and answering lots of questions, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we're all repeating the same here. We do really appreciate you spending some time here. Again, this staff summaries, I mean, you really could write, you know, pages of trying to get all this in here. So we understand that sometimes you got to keep it short, but it opens the door for more questions. But we really appreciate you guys taking the time to answer these questions, because as we always say, this is our job. We need to know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank the staff for being here and being prepared. And to the council, if yous don't hurry up, we're gonna be here on June.
Can't leave me out, Coach.
Well, why not? You're not on here.
Because I'm MVP.
Rubio.
Okay. I just wanted to say, I won't repeat everything everyone else said. I loved the discussion tonight and the teamwork collaborated by the administration and council. I love that the administration is being transparent with us and helping us narrow down what is priority. Because we did talk about how big this one is, and chewing some fat. I'd like to chew a lot of fat, so I love that we're doing it together. Thank you. And thank you, Madam Mayor.
Oh, okay. You know, it's 9 o'clock. I turn into something. But anyway, again, thank you to the staff. I always appreciate your time and you being prepared. So thank you. And I'm telling you, if you don't start talking faster or asking fewer questions or something, we are going to be here at Christmas.
I think that's a city holiday.
It is a city holiday. With that, we are adjourned at 9:01.
For Thursday or what?
She's going